Well, it's Friday night, man. It's Friday night. It's the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast. Welcome in, everybody. We're brought to you by Rocky Mountain Sports Network and, of course, sponsored by the amazing, fantastic Morgan Trinkets. We'll talk about them more later, man, but we got to get into it. Thanks, everybody that was hanging out, including Mr. Ernie Mays, waiting patiently for our 7:15 show. I tell you, I don't know about you, Trevor. I think we've tried to do a 7 o'clock show. We go on at 7:15. We do a 7:15 show. We go on about 7:30. Maybe we need to start trying to get it on earlier. I don't know. It just never seems to work out. We're always a few minutes late, so I really, really appreciate everyone that hangs out with us. Trevor Salzman is my fantastic co-host for this evening, man. We're going to take a ride through training camp, find out who's stacking days, but I got to say hello to Trevor, and Trevor's got to say hello to you. Welcome, Trevor.
Yeah, welcome everybody tonight. Again, thanks for being patient with us. I think we're practicing for post-game shows, right? I mean, some of our newer viewers don't know this, but we do post-game shows and we go live random times. So, I mean, just keep your notifications, going and on, and just because you just never know with us, especially when the season starts getting going. So, I think we're just practicing, maybe doing our training camp for sure, training camp before post-game shows start coming about. But excited to be here and can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, the notifications, man. I forget how great those notifications are, man. Just don't have to worry. Sit back. It's supposed to be this time, but I'll get notified. That's what you do. You like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button as well. Got to say hello to some friends. Ernie was coming in asking when we were going to get started. I told him it was going to be 1 minute. If you're right over on YouTube, Ernie came in and said, "Nice, go Broncos country only." Hello, Keith and Trevor. And Jody and Dutchie, who happen not to be here this evening. That's usually a Tuesday show. Check out those Tuesday shows if you're going to be checking out Dutchie for sure. Jody has a better chance as well. But we get Jody on a Friday night every now and then as well. So got to say hello to some Roundup royalty. Dropping stars, saying hello, rocking the Bo Nix jersey. It's the one, the only, Mr. Michael Ronquillo. Ronk himself saying, "Good evening, Keith and Trevor," giving us the orange and blue hearts. I believe that's clapping it up this time. I got it right. All right. Appreciate you so much, Michael. Appreciate you coming in here. Appreciate the support. And can't wait to get the conversation rolling. Kenny's Kirkpatrick of the amazing K&K Sports Show. Telling you, I have a busy schedule and I haven't been catching enough K&K. That's how great it is, guys. Check out the K&K Sports Show, man. You'll love it. I can't get enough of it. He's saying maybe training camp in the NFL, but it's always a superb owl. Maybe, I don't know, when the DBR is on. Good evening, Keith and Trevor. It's always a superb show. I don't know. Thank you very much, Kenny. I appreciate it. Saying good evening to each other. Appreciate you guys being kind in the posse. But Trevor, we need to get into this, man. It's getting into training camp now. I mean, really, we're talking about preseason game one, not that far around the corner. And it's that time where guys need to start stacking days, or they have been stacking days, or they haven't been stacking days. And let's just talk a little bit about what we're talking about stacking days, and B, where we're getting this information and what our analysis is, where it's all coming from and what we think of our analysis right now. Trevor, why don't you get us started, buddy?
Yeah, for when it comes to stacking days, we're just talking about just the overall, these players just getting better, who's standing out at training camp, and then who has something to still prove at training camp, and then who needs to stand out at training camp. But that's what we mean by stacking days. Who needs to stack days? Who maybe is not stacking the days up to this point? So very early analysis from us with this, because again, we need to see these guys in games. In games, that's where we're going to get our answers. So again, keep in mind, guys, we'll do another list of this, but this is just kind of the pre-list, before we do our actual list. I mean, this is our actual list, but to be more accurate, we want to make sure we do a post one as well. So keep a lookout for that one as well. But we're getting some of our information just from the media members out there, as much as many as we possibly can, and want to dial this down, and from what we know from the past, of course, as well. So just kind of a little bit of a mixture of different things coming into our analysis on these guys up to this point. But we're looking forward to doing this list tonight and then doing another one going forward.
Yeah, it breaks my heart that I didn't make training camp. I made it 2 years in a row ever since I kicked off Denver Bronco Roundup. Made it every single year. This year is not going to work out. I'm going to be missing the next couple of shows, guys. Trevor's going to be the head man, running the reins, talking to the posse, producing the show and being the host. But that being said, I'm going to be off to Ohio on a quick trip in order to move my daughter back to where we're at in Montana, but for good reason. She's taking a job at a college. That all being said, yeah, you're absolutely right, man. It's not firsthand knowledge. We got our ears to the ground. It's a lot of what we hear, what we're listening to, trying to get the best information from the best media outlets out there, and kind of sifting through that. I also just want to say, stacking days for me is really about progression. Who you hear progressing through what's being implemented, because this is all different. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a defense. It's a lot more, up the field and attacking rather than sitting back as a defensive front. It doesn't matter if you're a Bo Nix that's trying to, obviously get, ready to the NFL and implement a whole new offense. Everything needs progression. So that being said, man, I do got to get caught up once again on the posse, because we got first and foremost Phil McLaughlin almost right after we got done talking, dropping stars and saying, "Good evening, Keith and the Rocket Man. Looking forward to preseason and seeing how Bo Nix looks." And man, me, you, Trevor, Phil, we're all on the same page, man. I think we're, as Trevor, kind of alluded to, we'll have another episode much like this in which we're going to take a look at these guys once those preseason games hit, and then we'll really be able to see the tape and see how these guys are taking to the system. So thank you, Phil, by the way, dropping stars, coming in, and always being a fantastic supporter. But I think we're both on the same page as you. We're excited to see how Bo Nix looks. That being said, man, see if there's anybody else. Oh, Roy Osborne jumping in here, saying hello. Appreciate you. Say good evening, Keith and Trevor, plus all the posse. That's all of you in the chat, man. You are the posse. You're the thing that makes this whole thing go. I appreciate you guys so much, man. Growing, getting bigger. We got a posse that rolls like no other. I'll tell you what, man. Be scared if this posse's rolling down the street. Pearl Heater's coming in and saying hello, everyone, saying it's a great day. And yes, it was a great day. I know that Pearl was a little bit worried about the fires that are happening in Colorado, and now we don't have to worry about that. It sounds like those worries have gone away. Thanks for all the thoughts and prayers. I saw a lot of you guys in the chat also talking with Pearl and supporting her through all of this as well. Got to say hello to Adam and Kayla coming in and saying, love y'all. Keep being amazing, y'all. And I love that. Adam, I appreciate seeing you out there on Facebook and all the positivity you put out there in the world, man. You are one heck of a person. Your family is one heck of a family. And I appreciate you taking time out of that family life and all the great things you do to come in and say hello to everyone. So got to say hello to Trevor as well. Trevor, the lead man sometime soon. He was also made for it. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Well,
Last one, man. I
okay.
just got to give a little bit of love to Clayton. Clayton just came in here, didn't say a word, but he's dropping stars for us, dropping some stars as well. Thank you, Clayton, so very much. He did say a few other things. I'll drop that in the background. Go ahead, though, Trevor.
No. Again, thank you for everybody dropping stars. And Graham, I really appreciate the comment. Graham, you're amazing. Everybody, you guys, you're all are amazing. This is why we do this. But I want to be, specific. This next week, going into next week, I'll be taking over as host of DBR because Keith will be away. But don't get me wrong, Keith will be back. He's still the best host out there. He'll be back actually right around, I think, Keith, you'll probably be around after the Broncos' first preseason game, actually, because they play on the 11th. So you'll be here to break it all down with us. And, we'll have some special guests on, the show next week. But, we're going to hold it down. But, Keith, as we send him well wishes, moving his daughter. So, no, I'll just be taking over next week. But Keith will definitely be back. I assure you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. But yeah, Trevor is made for it, man. He's made for. You're amazing, Trevor. You know that. I know that. Hopefully, you know that. Certainly, all the posse knows that. So, that being said, let's break into that. I'm going to hold Kenny's question for just a second. Kenny, hang on with us really quick because I do want to get into our agenda. And our agenda, I want to run through this really quickly. It's easy to be positive. It's easy to go, if this guy does this, if this guy can do that, if this guy looks like this, if this guy can be more like that during this time. So, and being that being said, it sounds pretty positive. It sounds like, hey, all these guys have a lot of possibility. But there are guys out there that I think we have heard that are doing well in camp. They're stacking days. They're getting better. They're progressing. I think the easy one, I want to start it off, but I want your opinion. Let's just talk about Bo Nix. What do you got, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, with Bo Nix, for me, I just think that he's making progress. I think little by little, each and every day, he seems like that he's taking a snap. It really seems like it's dialed down between him and Jarrett Stidham for who's going to actually be the starter for this team. But some of the things I've heard from him is, just he's making progress, but not just with his throws. He's making adjustments at the line of scrimmage, and that's just exactly what you want to see from your rookie quarterback. And seeing this soon is impressive. It really is. Sean Payton's offense is not easy to learn, and it seems like he's been pretty quick to learn it and be efficient with it. So I think that's a huge takeaway. And his teammates they rave about him again. I don't expect him to throw him under the bus or anything like that, but just hearing how his teammates are rave about him. It seems like Sean Payton, and just seems like his eyes glow when he's talking about Bo Nix. It's like he's getting hearts in his eyes. I'm talking about his guys. So. For me, I mean, I just think Bo Nix is really starting to take off, and I think he's doing that sooner than maybe some other people expected. So I just think, he's stacking the days. I think it's not a matter of if Bo Nix is a starter; it's a matter of when he's the starter of this team. Whether that's week 1, if that's week 4, who knows? But I really like what I'm hearing from Bo Nix up to this point. Again, he's got to prove it in games. I want to make that point again. He's got to prove it in games, but up to this point, I think that he's been pretty impressive right now.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention a few other names. Caleb Williams, who, for all intents and purposes, is going to be taking snaps from day one. But when we started talking about Jaden Daniels, haven't heard a whole lot as of yet. Drake May, we certainly have heard a whole lot. Unfortunately, not for the positive. Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy. If you go after Bo Nix, we're talking about guys like Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis. And by the way, Joe Milton, who was also drafted by the Patriots, is probably looking better than Drake May by some people's estimation. What I'm getting at is this guy has been able to go out there in a training camp and compete. And that in and of itself tells me of all the days he's already stacked to get to this point. And it's not just the days he's stacked in college, which certainly help him, but the days he's already stacked, learning this offense, assimilating with his team, assimilating with his teammates, and, again, being in command to the point, as you just pointed out, Trevor, he's going up there and feels comfortable enough to see, safety switch and call an audible at the line of scrimmage, get it off to McLaughlin and tear up the defense on it. Things that we need and things that you love to see in the progression of a rookie quarterback. Bo Nix is like the easiest one on here for me. Trevor, I loved your list. I'm going to let you continue to guide. Let's go kind of a little bit more rapid fire as we start to go through some of these other guys that are already stacking days, so that we can get to those guys that we need to be a little bit more critical of as well. Oh, but before I do that, I wanted to get to that question of Kenny's, and I didn't want to get past it because it was a Bo Nix question. He said, well, I mean, I think it's somewhat Bo Nix related. He said, Keith and Trevor, a question for both of you. We're seeing highlights from Nix, which is great, but but are there any receivers standing out? And I thought it was a great transition too, for one that you might have on your list as well. What
Yeah.
receivers are standing out? What receivers are stacking days, Trevor?
Yeah, for me, again, this is just what I've heard. I haven't seen it with my own eyes, so I'm being very cautious when I'm bringing any of these names up to this point. But just Josh Reynolds, and it's a guy that, again, I don't think he's going to be a number one wide receiver for this team, and I don't think that that's not a good thing for the Broncos if he's a number one wide receiver, because it means that somebody else is disappointing. So that's the reason I say that. But I think Josh Reynolds, if he can step up and be that number two wide receiver next to Cortland Sutton, that's huge. And up to this point, we've heard that he's got very good chemistry with Bo Nix, which is really nice to hear. And he's just getting open and making things look pretty easy out there. So again, very early on, let's see what he does in games. But Josh Reynolds, up to this point, has actually been very impressive, and he seems happy to be here. And I think that there's a chance that he can step into a role and be very important for this offense going forward. And honestly, he needs to, because he's on a 1-year deal. They can. I know he signed a 2-year deal, but they can move off of him after this year. So he's kind of got a little bit of pressure on him to be that number 2 wide receiver, and step into that role that Jerry Jeudy wasn't, unfortunately unable to fill in this offense. But yeah, that's one wide receiver that's really standing out up to this point. And actually, I hate to do this, but he's kind of standing out more than Mr. Marvin Mims is up to this point. So very, very nice things to hear, though, that Josh Reynolds is stepping up in his role with this new team.
Yeah, he was on my list too, buddy. And it was a great transition. Great question, Kenny. Who's stepping up? Who's standing out? Who's been stacking days? It seems like Josh Reynolds from minicamp. We've been hearing reports of how good he's looked, his range. Sean Payton's been talking about it. We heard about clips and highlights and great catches and going over the middle and extending and yak and the whole 9 yards. So, if there was one guy that I had absolutely stand out, put a stamp on the wide receiver room that says he's been stacking days, especially, again, coming in as a free agent. This isn't a guy that's been 3 years in the system and all of a sudden he's always putting it together. It's like, oh no, this guy came in fresh, and man, I'm excited for what Josh Reynolds is putting together. You're getting a lot of love, by the way. Excited for Rocket Man coming out, saying Rocket Man taking over the show will be out of this world. Yeah, absolutely, buddy. I think that I'm going to be excited, man. I'm hopefully being able to at least watch and comment, depending upon the internet connection as you fly down the interstate. How's that? Kenny did say that, Keith, I'm hearing the Commanders are happy with Daniel so far and training camp. That's great, man. We don't get a whole lot of that information. Michael Ronquillo is right on track. He was right on there with Josh Reynolds as well. Yeah, absolutely, man. Trevor equals Kurt minus the rants.
I will say to a point, but here's the thing: I have a lot more critical than Kurt is. So when it comes to the Broncos and Sean Payton and just this team in general, so I will agree to a point, but I don't know. Kurt's got more hope for, which is good. Hope's great, and I got hope too. But I'm also just very harsh and critical because I want what's best for the Broncos in the long haul. So I will agree to that to a point, Roy.
Awesome. Kenny, you're absolutely welcome. He's thanking us for getting that answer out. What did no texting and drive? Oh, absolutely not. We're tag teaming across. It'll only be when my wife is driving. Not nothing that I'll be doing. I don't believe in texting and driving. Good call out, Michael. Don't text and drive, guys. I literally I drive past drivers sometime and I'm like, hang up the phone,
Yeah.
Please. It'd be better even just for the flow of traffic, if nothing else. Trevor, let's get through a few more names that are stacking days, at least a couple more names. Who else on your list? Who's high up on your list of stacking days, in your opinion? Again, outside perspective, just trying to go off of what we've heard, trying to be critical and analytical of that information. But this is kind of where we came. Who else do you have there, buddy?
Mr. Javonte Williams, a guy that a couple months ago, when SMA, when the Broncos ended up drafting SMA, people were kind of down on Javonte a little bit. Right around the minicamp situation, we always talk about, well, maybe he gets cut. I didn't really buy into that because, first of all, he's a former second-round draft pick, and they need a running back, to be efficient. So for Javonte, just really seems like he's turned it around a little bit. When it comes to his body, losing weight, and I think what I'm pleased with up to this point is Sean Payton's investment with Javonte Williams. I think it was pretty clear last year how he felt about Javonte Williams, meaning that he, played Javonte as much as he did, even though Javonte wasn't even close to, what he should be, and close to 100% healthy wise. So Javonte Williams for me is stacking the days. I think that he, I like hearing from Sean Payton saying that Javonte Williams up to this point is looking like the old Javonte Williams. I love hearing that, and that's great news for Bo Nix in this offense, who really needs a running back to be a 1,000-yard guy and to really be effective and efficient when they're running the football, because this team's going to have to run the football. There's just no way around it. We could talk about the quarterback position all day, and it is the most important position in the NFL, but you've got to have a running back, and that is a guy that is a difference maker. This team has lacked that, for a long time, it seems like. So Javonte Williams, very impressed up to this point when I'm hearing from him, and just, can't wait to see what he can do. Hopefully he does end up returning to the old Javonte Williams, because he was very impressive when he was fully healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a guy, it's funny. The breaks don't come easy. First off, he breaks almost everything in one leg. And then he rushes back. And because he rushes back, I don't think he had the longevity. He didn't train for the longevity of a 17-game season. Didn't look all that great to begin with, as he was trying to work himself back from the injury. And then by the time the second half of the season comes, he's worn out. He's a little bit tired. But from all reports, man, this is a cat that looks completely different. And for everybody that had him completely written off, all of a sudden, man, he's right in the mix. And, honestly, James kind of shuffled down off the list of, hey, this is going to be our RB1. This is going to be our RB1. And it sounds like Javonte's almost got it solidified at this point, which is great for him. I'm glad that he was able to have this comeback. That being said, it's going to be a big season for him. It's going to be one that he's going to have to prove out quite a bit.
Contract year for him too.
And that's why I was saying, what I mean? It's a contract year. You know what I mean? It's not prove it just because, he didn't have the best season last year. We'd like to see more. No, it's all on the line this year for Javonte. So whether it's for the Broncos or for somebody else, he wants to put a good performance out there. Simple as that. Got to get to Phil. He's going to take us on a little side jaunt here real quick. There are some roster moves. And that being said, we brought in a free agent, brought in Hunter Kampmoyer. This is a tight end that's been hanging out in San Diego for the last couple of years. But he asked, what do you guys think about him? I'll tell you one thing. It fits the mold. It absolutely fits the mold of everything that we've been hearing about Sean Payton. Sean Payton has been continually talking about, I like the size of this group. I like the size of this group. When he's talking about the receivers, the tight ends on this roster. Here's a guy that's 6'4", and I don't have his weight here, but it's going to be he's a solid dude. He's a big dude, 6'4", rumbling down the field. He's going to be up there with that Greg Dulcich, with that Lucas Kroll type of height, and he's going to be maybe some competition to maybe continue to push those guys. Do I think this is a guy that necessarily makes this roster? I don't think so. I think that honestly, maybe it's more just a little bit more competition. But it's interesting that we did end up taking him off of I said San Diego, didn't I? off of the Chargers' hands. Off of the Chargers' hands. I think I said San Diego earlier. Anyway,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on Cam Moore?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm kind of in agreement with you. I mean, it's a depth signing up to this point. You know, if you're the Broncos, you are relying upon, you know, you're hoping one of these tight ends just emerge. First of all, if that's Lucas Kroll, that's Greg Dulcich, those two in particular. Oh, by the way, you have Adam Troutman on this roster too, who is a guy that's just kind of got lost in the dark a little bit. Just you don't really hear about him too much anymore in this offense. And this is a guy that Sean Payton went out of his way to go and resign. So for me, I think it's about Greg Dulcich staying healthy. I really do. I think that he's the difference maker in this offense. I think Sean Payton feels the same way. You know, Lucas Kroll, yeah, there's always that chance he can be that guy, but I don't know that he's going to, you know, suddenly become a star. We shall see. Or if he can be that guy at tight end. I think Greg Dulcich is the guy they're invested in, and they're wanting him to be that guy. It's just a matter of fact of you know, Greg Dulcich just staying healthy, and that's the most important thing here. You know, Cap Warrior, you know, we'll see. It's a depth. That's kind of where I stand with this. You know, Quinn Bailey going down, that's just kind of another guy to bring onto this roster, more competition per se. But you know, yeah, I just this answer to the tight end positions is a lot higher than I think. You know, just going out there and signing depth guys, you were definitely hoping for Greg Dulcich to be that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, I'm going to flip a little bit. I'll go with one name real quick, and I'm going to go with Greg Dulcich. Here's a guy for me. And by the way, Big E Bronco comes in and says, "How's everyone's? Hope everyone had a great night." It's still going on for us, man. Still having a great night, hanging out with the posse, talking Broncos. But for me, honestly, Greg Dulcich is that name. That's a guy that, for me, has been stacking days. This is a guy that had question marks galore. This is a guy that had Lucas Kroll, the thought and the name of Lucas Kroll just had Sean Payton like ear to ear grinning and glowing like an angel in the heavens. I mean, my goodness gracious, when we first started, Lucas Kroll was everything and everything, anything and everything everyone was talking about. And that was kind of put to bed a little bit when our good friend Cecil Lammy asked a question about Lucas Kroll being the best, the best athlete, the best player out there so far at mini camp and training camp, and kind of got put in his place. And we've consistently now heard about how Greg has been out there performing. And for me, stacking days for him has been the fact that he's out there every single day. He's participating. And he's coming back from that injury, and he's looking good, and he's coming up with highlights. So that being said, those are stacking days, and especially for a Greg Dulcich, just being out there participating, not having any setbacks, not being on a secondary field, not having to take an additional days off because something's flared up or anything like that. He's stacking days in the right direction, in my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Trevor.
Yeah, I have Greg Dulcich on this list as well. As far as them stacking days and just being consistent, I think just him being out there, I think that's the biggest question mark with him. It's not a skill set, per se. It's just, can he be out there in the field? Can he stay healthy for a full season? And up to this point, he has, and that's been very refreshing to see that. It's something weird though. We haven't heard Lucas Kroll's name a ton since Dulcich has been out there. That's what I find. Very, very, very interesting throughout this whole situation is you're starting to see Greg Dulcich out there more, and you're not hearing Lucas Kroll's name as often. So Greg Dulcich, yeah, I think he can be a difference maker for this offense if he can stay healthy. But again, health, it's a big question mark, and he hasn't been able to do it up to this point. He's got to show it out there, for us to all buy in and believe in that.
Okay, I will say the one thing though. One thing I'm starting to buy in and believe in is our strength and conditioning and wellness program that we have for the Denver Broncos, man. It seems like these guys, Javonte was a perfect example of how this team somehow managed to get this guy back in record time. He didn't have any setbacks through an entire year, and now he's coming back and he's, running training camp like you would expect, an RB1, at least competitor to be running in training camp. With great reports coming out. That's just one example. And Greg now out there, looking good at tight end and stacking those days. Just fantastic. It's great to hear. I hope this continues. I hope that we have similar success, knock on wood, to our offensive line and how well they were able to stay on the field last year. And as a group, that was fantastic for us. Also fantastic, and I got to talk about them. I talked to them at the top of the show. And that's our fantastic sponsor, Morgan Trinkets. Guys, gals, Broncos fans, for those of you who don't know, Pearl Heater is the owner of Morgan Trinkets. Pearl went off and had a fantastic show up at Cheyenne Frontier Days, selling all her amazing Southwest jewelry, Southwest pottery, and estate gold at wholesale prices. Told me had a record show, best show she's ever had up there, and then came back to devastating fires in her backyard in Colorado and has really been struggling. So this is a twofold show. They're a fantastic, fantastic company. Obviously, 33 years experience, once nationwide, had a fantastic, one of their best shows ever at Cheyenne Days. After they've been going there year after year, just tells you the quality product that they bring. They also have silver, all sterling silver, start at 10,000, go all the way up to 2,000. You can find them over on Morgan Trinkets. And luckily, Pearl didn't have any issues. But what a great way to support Pearl and all the heartache that she's went through over the last few days and last week. Go over to Morgan Trinkets on Facebook.com and check out all the amazing pieces she has. If you don't see what you're looking for, you can message her. She can find a great piece for you. All the transactions over there on Facebook go via PayPal. If you do catch her on one of her shows that she has another record show at, she does take all major credit cards as well. By the way, if you purchase over $50 on Morgan Trinkets and through Facebook using PayPal, then it's shipped absolutely free. Check out Morgan Trinkets. That's Morgan Trinkets over on Facebook. I'll drop the link, guys. Support Pearl, support Morgan Trinkets, and believe me, just go take a look. Southwest jewelry, Southwest pottery, estate gold at wholesale prices. If that's up your alley, you'll be loving it. Check them out today. I'll drop the link here in just a little bit. Let's transition. I know that we could go on and on about guys that maybe stack days here, Trevor, but let's switch over to, in your opinion, from what you've heard, taking all your analysis in, who isn't stacking days for you right now? Who haven't you heard enough about?
Yeah, for me, again, and this is not a surprise, it's Zach Wilson. He's on that list. He's top of that list, I think. This is not a surprise. I was sitting here saying that Zach Wilson, as soon as they acquired him, I don't believe that was their backup plan. If they didn't get Bo Nix, I think Zach Wilson needs development. He's never gotten that in the NFL up to this point. He's been around for 3 years now. The Broncos, the reason why they took a chance on Zach Wilson is he's a former first-round draft pick. They gave up a 6th-round draft pick, and the Jets paid half his salary. So, of course, you're going to take a gamble on that. But I think that Sean Payton took a gamble on Zach Wilson, knowing that, hey, he may not be ready right away. But, hey, we have from our first-round draft pick in the quarterback room, we're going to take a chance on him that we just have to give up a late draft pick for him. So I think Zach Wilson, it just kind of clears day that he's not in this competition anymore, in my opinion. I think that he's a guy that just needs development. And I think that's what's best for Zach Wilson. He needs a chance to sit back, kind of gather himself a little bit, get a little bit more confidence underneath him, and be under Sean Payton for a year. Just like what Sam Darnold was in San Francisco, under Kyle Shanahan. And look where he's at now. He's in Minnesota. He's starting. So I think that's exactly what Zach Wilson is here in Denver. He has a chance to start somewhere else next year if he goes elsewhere. So I think Zach Wilson's a guy that isn't stacking the days just because he's not, in my opinion, in that quarterback mix anymore to start. But I think that I think it's what's best for him, and it's not surprising in my opinion as well.
I'll go one step further. It's what's best for the team, Trevor.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted, a starter named from day one, and it was probably the guy that we took with the number 12 overall pick in the last draft here, in Mr. Bo Nix. But we do need to start whittling this down a little bit, man. We can't have a 3-man competition. And you're right. He's a guy that, got a small window of opportunity to maybe go out there and try to compete for that number 1 position, but he's not been stacking the days like expected. And because of that, he's no longer going to be in that competition. if he was outperforming Jarrett Stidham, if he was outperforming Bo Nix, if he had stacked the days to that same level that Bo Nix had stacked them to, he would be out there competing. It's just the way that Sean Payton runs. Like he said, we need the best 53. I don't want to go ahead and I don't want to bring a guy onto our roster, into our room, into our training camp, and then let him go and see him flourish someplace else. I want that guy on our team. So the best man makes the roster. We find a way to get him on the team.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm going to flip the script just a little bit because Phil always has great questions and he's a great supporter of the show. I'm going to bring another one up from Phil. He says, talking about a guy that hasn't been able to stack too many days. He says, you guys think that Uwazurike stayed in shape and will help the defense? Man, this is a defensive line that certainly before, at the final whistle of the last season, man, it looked like it needed a lot of help, and Uwazurike would have been welcomed with open arms to possibly even be starting, even though he's been out this long. Do you think he's kept in shape? What have you heard? And do you think he can help this defensive line that has been bolstered in the offseason?
Yeah, I do think he stayed in shape. I always thought this was a possibility of him returning, just depending on what the law kind of threw at him, and everything was cleared out. But Sean Payton did say that the Broncos are allowed to have at least one employee that did reach out to him, and I'm sure he's been working out as an athlete and everything like that, keeping in shape. Because if he doesn't, he comes in, he's out of shape. Well, he may not make this roster. So he better be working out and better be in shape. With this defensive line that you have right now. I mean, again, he's a guy that's got to come in and earn it. I'll be honest. With Uwazurike, I was pretty high on him when they drafted him, but with this revamped defensive line, I do think that he's going to have to earn it. I really do. I think that he's going to have to come in. He's going to have to start, really pushing hard and showing out for these coaches and for this team. If he wants to make the roster, I think that's where it's at with this team. If he was on this team last year, I think there's a chance he could have started, but up to this point right now, with where the Broncos invested in on the defensive line, I don't know that he's going to even be here. That's the thing. Yes, they've waited on him. Clearly, they've seen something in him that they've waited this long and kept him on the roster. But he's just not going to get any sort of starting job. He's going to have to earn that. And, maybe he's another depth guy. Maybe he pushes another guy out. But I do think that Uwazurike has some work to do with impressing this coaching staff on the field.
Yeah. I'm right on track with where you're at. I think the guy's stayed in shape. And the reason I think that he stayed in shape is it sounds like this guy's been trying to do everything right to get to this point. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of left turns you can take when you're under this much heat. He's made all the right steps. It sounds like he's went to Gamblers Anonymous. He's went through programs. I think that has every intent to come back and be a force in the NFL. And because of that, I think he's in shape.
Yeah.
Will he help the D? Man, I think if he gets the opportunity, he will. But he's got the long track with the short road. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot of time to make up the for everybody else that's had this time, especially for a guy that's been away. We're not just talking about a guy that's been away for a few months. This is a guy that's been away from football for a while and been away from the Denver Broncos facility for a while. So he's got a lot of catching up to do, not just physically but mentally. It's going to be tough. I think this is a guy that might not make the 53, but you have him on your roster, and you certainly try to find a way to get him involved. And I think there's a path, I guess you could say, for him to be, a help to this defense. But it's not an easy path, Phil. It's not an easy path with everything that he has in front of him. The one thing that I will say is it sounds like Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos organization are behind Uwazurike and are ready to have him come in and compete. So at least you have that going for him. So I'll get over to Dan because Dan might have came in a little bit early or a little bit late, but I like Dan, and Dan has always great questions. He says, let's talk about that addition of Josh Reynolds. It's a free agent acquisition of Josh Reynolds and the trade for JFM. I think Denver is now finally trending upward. So we already talked about Josh Reynolds and the days he stacked, But to be honest, John Franklin Myers has been causing a few rumbles here and there as well. He wasn't on my particular stacking days list because he's kind of went quiet as of lately. But he certainly is a strong candidate in the middle of the defense. Both of these guys came in via free agency. Why don't you talk about how we did in free agency with those two acquisitions and how you feel about it? Give Dan your thoughts, buddy.
Yeah, I love the John Franklin Myers trade. I thought that was absolute steal when they were able to trade for him on draft day. I think that he's a he's a big upgrade on this defensive line. I think he's going to help Zach Allen take some of the pressure off Zach Allen. It's probably one of my, if not the best offseason move that I loved from what the Broncos did this last offseason. I just like what they've done with the defensive line. I think that's what you really want to invest in is your defensive line and offensive line, the trenches, right? That's where you want to invest. And I think that they did a good job doing that this year. They knew they had to get better at that, and being where they were at last year, one of the worst run stopping defenses out there in the NFL. So for me, John Franklin Myers is a big addition, but not only just for himself, but for Zach Allen as well. I think Zach Allen has a chance, probably the best chance, being certainly here in Denver, has a chance to possibly be a Pro Bowler and stand out, in my opinion. DJ Jones as well. But just with the addition of John Franklin Myers, and just really love the addition. Josh Reynolds, we'll see. Again, I praise him right now, but I got to see it on the field. And there just is a lot of talent in this wide receiver room, Keith. Honestly, Sean Payton has talked about it many times. There is just a lot of talent there, and some guys are not going to make this roster, and some of these guys are kind of auditioning for other teams to be on other teams. Yeah. So we have to keep that in mind with this wide receiver group. They're not going to keep all these guys. So I like what Josh Reynolds brings to the team as far as a veteran presence. I think it's good to have around with Bo Nix, if he ends up being the guy. I'm a fan of the contract with Josh Reynolds, and I'm a fan of the addition of John Franklin Myers because it didn't cost you a ton with these guys, first and foremost. You didn't pay him a ton. And I think that these could be nice veteran moves that could pay off for this team. It's right now in the not so future.
Yeah, I'll agree almost all the way across the board. First off, I got to say I think that John Franklin Myers has the chance of being the best overall draft value that we got all the way across the board. I mean, Bo Nix has the ability, but across the board to get John Franklin Myers for what we gave up was like, well, it'd be like the equivalent of Zach Wilson being our quarterback QB1 at this point. And then we might have some discussion at that point. But right now, John Franklin Myers is looking like the dude, and will really help push this defense, as you were talking about, with guys like Zach Allen and DJ Jones, who I think could hopefully finally benefit, especially with the scheme change that we're also kind of seeing as well. Josh Reynolds, the one thing that is it's the biggest concern is, coming in was his hands and how many balls he's going to put, on the turf and how secure those hands are. There's a lot of stats that say, how great the Lions offense got better when Josh Reynolds was still around. But I'll be honest, it's easy to catch with, limited hits in training camp against your own team with nobody hardly in the stands. Maybe you have 25 people up on the berm, and that's about it. They're all supporting you. You know what I mean? There's no pressure. Game time is something completely different. So I'm going to be right there with you, Trevor, man. I can't wait to see it under the big lights and see if Josh Reynolds continues to shine, because so far he's been pretty dang good. Appreciate Dan saying that we have he loved your analysis.
Appreciate Dan.
Quickly on it. Michael Bandy is a guy that Sean Payton was kind of excited about when first got together with mini camps and the like. But for me, it's a name that seems like it's been drifted into the nether ether. Anything else to add about Michael Bandy? Is he even in competition in your opinion?
Yeah, I just think that you have so much competition in that wide receiver run right now. He's a guy that's just not getting talked about enough. So I think you're very deep in the wide receiver room, and I think that's intentional. From Sean Payton and where they constructed this roster up to this point. Just unfortunately, a lot of these guys are not going to be able to make this roster, but I think Bandy's one of those guys that could be auditioning for another team. Here pretty soon. So I think that wish him the best, of course, and I hope he does show out and make this roster, but. I just think that you have a lot more talent in this wide receiver room, and I think that you have a lot of guys that still need to prove something, of course, but just a lot of depth, and it's going to be very hard to make this roster, being that you're one of those wide receivers that maybe were towards the bottom list on the depth chart for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, for me, I'll be honest, man, and I've been critical in this way before. We don't have a whole lot of A+, A players, A- players. I think we have, when it comes to our receiver room, some B, some B-, some C+ type of receivers that are all grouped together.
Mm-hmm.
And now some of these guys are going to be contract-driven type of roster moves, because if you're getting paid, you're getting paid. You're not moving on. You're not cutting people. If you were just a high draft pick within the last couple of years, you're probably making this roster regardless. And so for a guy like Michael Bandy, man, I got to be honest, it's a tough, rough road, especially with all this muddled talent at the same quality and level, in my opinion. I'm waiting for people to break out. I want to get to one more, one that maybe we'll switch over to because we only have about 15 minutes left. Kind of muddle in between that, who isn't and who needs to. I'm going to go over to the who needs to, and it's just a guy I haven't heard enough of. It's a guy that I was very critical of in this offseason. It's a guy that needs to be a major key piece of this team, and it's a guy that I just need to hear more and more of how well he's doing with his connection with whatever quarterback is out there. I don't think I've heard enough about Courtland Sutton, to be completely honest. Wow. This is supposed to be your wide receiver one. And I hear a lot about Tim Patrick, and I hear a lot about, we just got done talking about Josh Reynolds and, all these other receivers. Heck, I hear about David Sills about as much as I hear about Courtland Sutton right now. And so, again, just trying to keep my ear to the ground of fantastic plays and coming up big and making that connection. I need to hear more of Courtland Sutton, because I think he's going to be so key. I was so happy once they wrapped up a contract with him that he'd be in here and he's going to be 100% and he's going to be dialed in. He's going to be wanting to go. So more Courtland Sutton. What are your thoughts on that, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about it at this point. Again, do I think Courtland Sutton on a good team, is he your number one wide receiver? Probably not. I think on a good team, he's probably a number 2 wide receiver. But on this team, he is this team's number 1 wide receiver right now. I don't think he's the same Courtland Sutton he was a couple years ago. I do think there's something to prove with Courtland Sutton. Clearly, the Broncos think the same way, not giving him giving him a long-term extension. For me, yeah, I get what you're saying with Courtland Sutton. You're not hearing his name a ton, but I think it's more so the coaches are pretty satisfied with Courtland Sutton, and there's other guys that are showing out that maybe haven't been as consistent. Courtland Sutton, again, this is a guy that caught double-digit touchdowns last year from Russell Wilson. We'll see if he's a good fit for Bo Nix or Jarrett Stidham in this offense. But, I think that right now there's other guys that I'm more concerned with, just, in the wide receiver room that haven't been consistent enough. Then Courtland Sutton up to this point, he's going to be your number 1 wide receiver regardless. So, eventually when we see the games, I think it's fair to see how he fits with this offense. If he doesn't fit at all, or he's not performing up to his contract and where he's expected to be, meaning that he's the number 1 wide receiver on this, in this wide receiver room for the Broncos, then I can put him on this list. But up to this point, I'm not quite there yet with Courtland Sutton, because I haven't heard him emerge as like, oh, he's dropping the football too much, or him being a serious problem. I haven't heard that, so that's why my concern level is not quite there with Courtland Sutton just yet.
Got to run through the posse really quick, because a good friend of the show just jumped in. Patrick Wiltsey coming in saying, aloha from Anaheim, back to Hawaii tomorrow. Everything here is Rams and 49ers. So gross. Well, bear through it, Patrick. Hope you had a great time over here on the continental United States. Can't wait for you to get back to Hawaii because it's so freaking beautiful over there. One day we'll get over there. I promise. That's on the bucket list for me to get over to Hawaii. And in the meantime, if you guys want to support Patrick, like y'all are saying hi to him and hello and the whole 9 yards, you want to support him some more. I know I try to support him by, supporting the company he works for, and that's Lion Coffee. If you're a coffee lover, man, you got to head over to lioncoffee.com and get yourself some Lion Coffee. But Pearl saying hello, and aloha going out from Michael Ronquillo, and Roy's all in there. Hello, Patrick, and Kenny as well. And I want to get to there as well. Kenny's been dropping questions. I haven't been ignoring you, Kenny. The posse is hopping, but he has a good one here. He says, I'm hearing everyone love John Franklin Myers, but what about hearing about Browning and Cooper and how they are both booking? I'll put one more name in there. Give me your thoughts about Browning, Cooper, and Nick Bonito so far through this training camp. What are your thoughts about those edge guys, right?
Yeah, the edge right. I'll start with the first two guys you just mentioned there, and that's Browning, Jonathan Cooper. And those are two guys that I'm concerned with right now. Again, I think that adding John Franklin Myers to the defensive line and seeing what the Broncos have done, investing in that defensive line will help this edge rushing room a little bit more. But Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning, let's be honest, in the contract years, I mean, they gotta show out. And up to this point, I haven't heard a ton from a lot of praise for those guys. Then you have Nick Bonito fighting his injury as well. So that's something that we have to keep in mind with him. I think they're just trying to take the more precautious side of things when it comes to Bonito. But absolutely with Bonito though, he needs to be the guy that steps up and is a guy. He can't just be a rotational edge rusher. He needs to be a guy that is a 3-down edge rusher. He can get after the quarterback, stop the run. So there's definitely needs to be improvement from Bonito. But Browning, I think he has all the ability in the world. He just needs to stay healthy. With Cooper, I think you kind of know what you have with Jonathan Cooper right now. He's probably never going to be that A-tier edge rusher for this team. But I think that, you can count on him, being consistently out there. And I do think that he's all around probably right now, showing that his consistency on the field. I do think he all around, he's pretty, you probably more consistent edge rusher. The most talented out now, I would say, I think it's Baron Browning. But again, he just hasn't stayed healthy enough. But you need, having this defense be better than they were last year. I think you have to have success getting after the quarterback and not necessarily just blitzing all the time, sending the house all the time because you can't get there from your defensive line, from your edge rushing room. But this team, a big part of this team's defense is going to be these edge rushers who will step up and who won't.
I'm expecting a completely different defense from everything I've heard. They're going to be upfield. They're going to be penetrators. They're not going to be just those, that sit back, maintain your gap, keep everything in front of you type of defense that we've seen over the last couple of years. And so I'm excited for this pin your ears back and see what a few of these guys can do. And that includes the couple of guys that you just talked about, Kenny. Baron Browning, so far, I'm starting to change my mindset on him. He's came in, he's put on weight, he's put on strength, he's looking good, he's been healthy. I've been critical, but I think especially with a little bit of a body transformation that we're also seeing, I think it shows the dedication that he's had to trying to get on the field and trying to be healthy and trying to put everything he can into that body in order to make sure that he's out there and he's performing. Jonathan Cooper is an absolute spark plug and can really disrupt. But I'm right there with you. As much as I love Jonathan Cooper. In fact, if you rewind back a couple of months, I was saying that I hope they keep Jonathan Cooper, but I think they'll keep Baron Browning. I'll be honest, like I said, the way that Baron Browning has come in so far, what I've heard of the little bit I've seen, I'm probably flipping my script on that, but the one that concerns me the most is Nick Bonito. This is a guy that made a big step last year. And this year came in and everyone was saying he's right there again, taking another big step as mini camps started coming around. And that little pre-training camps that we have, everything when everyone's getting together, Nick Bonito is looking good, but now a back injury. And a back injury for an edge rusher, this is one that you have to have right before you get him out there. So Nick Bonito, for me, is the biggest concern out here. That means that Browning and Cooper might have to be those guys, man. And I don't know if they're there yet, because I think that Nick Bonito was poised this year. We don't have a whole lot of more time left, so I'm going to let you pick off your list, man, a guy that you want to talk about, Trevor. Who else is on there that you're like, man, if I don't get to this guy, man, I feel like we let down everybody on the Posse, everybody on the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast. Who do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Someone who needs to stack the days, to my opinion, is Mr. Marvin Mims. This is a guy again we talked about. That 2023 class, along with Riley Moss, another guy I have on my list as well. That guys that just need to step up, man. I mean, this is kind of where we're at with these guys. Either that you're that guy or you're not. And part of the team's success going forward is they need to start hitting on draft picks, and they just haven't done that over the last couple of years. And I know that the whole Russell Wilson trade has something to do with that too. Okay, that's very true, but you need to hit on your later picks and your mid-round picks. That's your money round right there. That's what makes a roster. Helps you big time when you get hit on those guys. So Marvin Mims is one of those guys, right? You ended up trading up for him. You had big expectations for him coming into this year. And up to this point, we just have not heard a ton of praise from Mr. Marvin Mims, and a guy that I've been critical about for sure. It's great that he's a Pro Bowler on special teams, but what can he do for your offense? Can he be that explosive wide receiver that you need? Up to this point, he just hasn't proven that. And so it's a concern for me going forward. And part of that, Sean Payton getting him involved in the offense, which he's admittedly said that, that's on him. He should have got him involved in the offense sooner last season. But it's on Marvin Mims to go out there and prove something. The Broncos didn't trade up for Marvin Mims for him to be a special teamer. A Pro Bowl special teamer. That's just not what it is. I mean, you can find those guys, undrafted guys. You can find those guys later in the draft. You drafted him to be a difference maker on the offense side of the ball. And unfortunately, up to this point, he hasn't been that guy. Hopefully, we will start to see him emerge being that guy. Maybe he just needs a little bit more time, and we'll see it during preseason and into the season. But up to this point, I'm just like, wow. I'm a little concerned not hearing Marvin Mims kind of stand out, at training camp.
Michael's right there with you. So he says, I have wide receiver Marvin Mims not stacking days as well. A guy that needs to stack days. And this is like you said, you invest, you put that much capital in, you aren't looking for the best returner, one of the best returners in the league, especially with the way the kickoffs are maybe changing. Who knows what that'll look like? That could completely flip the script as it is. Marvin Mims is a wide receiver. I didn't even want him taking, return snaps, but he's back there. He's going to be part of the mix. Now, Sean Payton did come out today and say he's out there. He's taken a ton of snaps with the wide receiver room, kind of alluding to the fact that maybe not as many, special team snaps. But you're right, man. We haven't heard Marvin Mims. I don't need to hear more about Tim Patrick and how well he's doing out there, and Josh Reynolds or little Jordan Humphreys or David Sills, and not hear about Marvin Mims. This is a guy that should be out there lighting it up, and we need a guy. I just got done talking about Cortland Sutton and how big of a need he will be to be that wide receiver one. You said, hey, don't worry. But when it comes to a wide receiver two and a guy that you invested in, that should be Marvin Mims, and not hearing a whole lot, that's a little bit concerning. That's a good call out, buddy. We might have time for one more, man. I do got to say that I did see this as well. I brought it up on the screen that Jonathan Cooper spoke today at Broncos training camp. He was holding his son, Javier, if I remember right, while he was holding his son, Javier. So a cute kid. And it's good to see a little bit of family time there at training camp as well. So I'll give you one more name. I told you only had one, but you get two now.
Okay. Appreciate it. For me, again, I'm going to go back to the youth movement. And I'm going to go Mr. Troy Franklin, a guy that we haven't mentioned a ton right now. Does he need to stack it this year? No. And I've been on par just saying that. Like, I don't think that he needs to emerge and be that number one wide receiver, not number two wide receiver this year. I don't expect big things out of Troy Franklin this year, but I do expect him to progress and be that guy in 2025. And I think that's where the Broncos, when they took him in the draft, I think that's what they were hoping for him as well. And
Yeah.
up to this point, when I'm hearing about Troy Franklin, it's his drops, and it's something that I've talked about when he was drafted. I said, watch his drops. He's just a guy that drops the football way too many times. We've said it with Josh Reynolds, but I'm more concerned about it with Troy Franklin than anybody. He's got to be able to catch the football, and he just got to be able to perform. And this is a guy that has that connection with Bo Nix. You're hoping that they can have that connection here with the Broncos as well, and you're hoping he does emerge. But it's not the end of the world, I don't think. If he doesn't, I don't think there's as much pressure on Troy Franklin to emerge this year as it is with Marvin Mims. But I do think that there's a little bit of pressure in to where I've not heard very good things about Troy Franklin and the coaching staff, yelling at him and whatnot, which just means they care, which is great because, they need to be hard on him because it means they care and they're invested in him. But they're not yelling at him for the right reasons, right? Right now. That's why I'm a little concerned with him up to this point.
Not the cheering that you'd like to hear.
Yeah.
Phil dropped stars right at the end. We're at an hour, so we'll have to wrap it up with this question and these thoughts. Thanks, Phil, for dropping stars. Morning, noon, night, beginning, middle, end, however you want to put it. But he says, after watching the game last night, I'm not sure if I want Mims back there to return. Pearl was saying as well that she looked a little like it was a little bit dangerous, and then Phil was wondering if we should use Watson instead. I'll give you my two thoughts on this, Phil, first. Sean Payton alluded to it. This is one place that you really don't want to show your hand. He said, hey, if it's up to us, we'll talk to the Packers and we'll test some stuff out there. But I want to make sure that tape doesn't go out to any other team. It's just held between the Packers and us if we do anything there. He's trying to hold everything close to the vest, and a lot of teams, I think, are doing much the same. So you're seeing very generic returns. I think it's going to pump up quite a bit once we see regular season start. You won't see it through right now in these scrimmages. You won't see it through these preseason games necessarily. But I think it's going to turn up and be completely different once the season starts. That also being said, talk about a guy that needs to stack days, hasn't been stacking days. Watson is that guy for me. He was a guy on my list. I don't know if we're going to turn it over to Watson necessarily. So that'll be my quick answer on Watson. Is I just don't know if he's in the mix like I thought he was going to be when we were all excited right after he came on with the team. Trevor, I'll turn it over to you, though.
Yeah, that's a guy that I had as well. Blake Watson is a guy that really does need to start stacking the days a little bit. He's behind with that injury he had to deal with. I think he's a little bit behind the 8 ball a little bit. Some people say, well, Samaje Perine, they could get rid of Samaje Perine. What has Blake Watson done up to this point that you're going to get rid of Samaje Perine? So I think that he needs to show out a little bit more, and play a little bit of catch up ball because Samaje Perine's been out there playing, catching passes from Bo Nix and getting that chemistry. Watson, hasn't been out there up to this point. Yeah. So, I just think that I need to see it from Blake Watson before I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to.
I think he's won Watson in the return game.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. I don't even know if he makes his roster. I mean, that's
fair enough.
He makes his roster, so I don't know that he's going to be back there. I will say this about Marvin Mims. I'm not so against him being back there returning kicks if he can't be that guy on the offense side of the ball. Because I don't want to take Marvin Mims away from what he does best. And let's be honest, he was a Pro Bowler, and then he wasn't a Pro Bowler wide receiver, and wasn't big in the offensive game as we were hoping he would be, and the coaching staff hoping he would be. So if he's not that guy offensively, I'm not taking him away from being on special teams and being that kick returner for this team, because I do think that he can offer something to this team, even if that's not that number 2, number 3 wide receiver that you were hoping for when you drafted him. But I would rather get something out of him just in general than not get anything out of him at all and take him away from what he does best. So that's kind of where I stand with Marvin Mims.
That's fair. That's a fair thing, man. Hey, get what you can out of every single guy. As Sean Payton says, tell me what they can do, not what they can't do. Mm-hmm. Marvin Mims is a great returner, and that's what he can do. Then let's get him back there and let's make him a great returner, and let's put all the pieces together that we possibly can. Got to say hello to one person before we get out of here, and it's because, well, he's one of the 4 horsemen, and I think this just brings up all the points that we just got done talking about perfectly. He chimes in, and he had a couple of comments. He says, Nix and Sutton are clicking. So, and we were just got into saying what I need to see and hear more of Sutton personally. And what was the other one that he had? He says, "Oh, and it sounds like Tim Patrick looks slow and he's overweight." This is where it's tough, guys, and this is why we said this is an analysis show that honestly might not even be fair. That might not be fair to us, might not be fair to you, because it's an ear to the ground. It's trying to listen to your favorite podcasters, trying to get inside analysis from a source or two that you might have here or there, and trying to get a feel for what this is actually looking like when you can't be there. Jody's hearing a few things. I'm hearing a few things. Trevor's hearing a few things. We're all trying to formulate our opinion, but it'll all come down to when we start to see these preseason games. And then we're going to be back with you again with a little bit better analysis of how we think have really taken the steps throughout this offseason and have put it together and are ready for this regular season. That being said, Trevor, I'm going to make a wrap on that part of the show and say, we got to say goodnight, man. We got to say goodnight to everybody who's joined in, all the star givers, all the commenters, all the love and support that we get every single show, man. Why don't you start us off by saying goodnight?
Yeah, I just want to appreciate everybody once again for being here with us on a great Friday night. And I appreciate Keith being here. Keith, we're going to miss you next week. So please, everybody, send your best wishes over there to Keith as he's helping his daughter move. So we'll have Denver Bronco Roundup next week. It's going to be me, and then we'll see who else is going to join me. But, can't wait to talk more Denver Broncos next week. We're right around the corner, honestly, from our first preseason game. And we talked about, kind of ear to the ground when we're talking about analysis on these players. But honestly, not even the coaches know right now what they have with this team until we see them in game action. Game action is where we're all going to get to see what this team and this roster is made up and what players are going to stick and what players are not going to be around. So, again, can't wait to see what happens in preseason. Football is right around the corner. I can't wait. And I can't wait for everybody to join us on Tuesday for another episode of Denver Bronco Roundup. And just really appreciative of everybody in the posse we have. Keith, I think we're very lucky to have the fans that we have and the support we have. Honestly, you guys have been amazing, and we can't wait to share more details on future shows with you guys when it comes to not only being on twice a week, 3 times a week for a post-game show. It's right around the corner, guys. Can't wait to break it down with you guys, and just want to appreciate you guys for everything you guys do for us. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you right back here on Tuesday for another episode of Denver Bronco Roundup. Go Broncos.
Absolutely. Go Broncos. Absolutely go Broncos, man. Go Trevor. And go Posse, man. One last one from Graham. I saw him post this a little bit earlier. Sean Payton said he wanted all his coaches today before practice. He says, you know what? I'm really going to be on their butt today. And he didn't use the word butt, but he's like, I really want to be on their butt today. Everyone's going to be on their butt. And at one point, he did say this, and Graham brought this up. He said, Payton turned to Patrick and he says, do ultrasound machines impact your brain function? He said, since he's had so many ultrasounds and went through so many different things, he says, I didn't get the best return look, I guess you could say, or reaction. That being said, we always get fantastic reactions from our posse, man, from the very get of every single episode, man. You guys joining in here, making sure that you're liking, sharing, subscribing, making sure that you're checking us out on YouTube, you're checking us out on Facebook. Search us out over on Twitter too, man. We got things going on over there as well. Trevor's over there. I'm over there. We like to conversate from time to time. Appreciate you guys, man. From, like I said, from the very beginning of the episode all the way to the very single end, all the star givers, all the love and support that you give us, all the love and support that you give each other, guys. Like I said, Pearl is doing fantastic because of a lot of what you guys are doing, a lot of what she does, but all the support that you give Pearl over there at Morgan Trinkets, she is very, very appreciative as well. Remember, Denver Bronco Roundup for now is every Tuesday and Friday until we add more episodes. Every Tuesday, every Friday, 7:15 p.m. We try to be on time. I'll be gone for the next couple of weeks. Trevor's going to be holding down the fort and holding court and telling you everything you need to know about the Denver Broncos. So make sure you check out the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast, man. We got to get out here like we always do, man. It's hot in this room. I'm sure it's hot all the way around the United States. It seems like it's hot, but I got to get out of here. Got to get a little bit of sweat from the brow. Until next time, until we see you all again, whether it be me or Trevor or Jody or Albert, until we see all of you, we're going to get it out of here DBR style. Keep your feet in the stirrups, keep your guns in your holsters, and of course, as always, everyone, keep the Broncos in your heart. Till next time, we're out of here. Mile high salute.